It's not every day you get a chance to really tour a Javelin and take a look at what it can do and how it's coming along, basically. I think a lot of Jav owners and prospective Jav owners are very curious about this ship, and I thought it would be pretty cool to kind of put together a cut video, just kind of showing, the size 12 torpedo launchers that are right at the front there that I just casually passed by, and take a look at those large cannon banks on the sides that I'm passing by on the left and the right of size 7s and size 5 turrets, respectively, designed mainly for broadsides of smaller and larger ships that are slewed together for a single gunner each to handle two sets of the guns. And I would say that this is a very fascinating ship. As I approach two of the main turrets. So this quads size whatever turrets, and that's something I'm going to bring up again, I think, in the internal video, because I kind of do go through the Javelin tour right after this, and well, at another location, but this same your video, you're going to have to watch both. And as I try desperately to see inside the the towers of the command of this location, and I take a look at the rear tracks of the main turret. Very Scorpius-like, actually. Or you could argue that the Scorpius is molded after this ship, this wonderful Aegis ship, where they are designed to move along those tracks and retract to the rear of the vessel. And both the top and the bottom do that. It's pretty neat. I'm going along the tracks right now. Now, as I see the engine countings on the sides, there's actually 4 racks of engines on this ship. And this is actually kind of interesting in quite a few ships, especially the Connie that we already have, because that's a good way to think of ships we have them or we don't already. The used to be one of the most dangerous design features of the Connie was that people could blow apart your engines and take away 25% of your engine capabilities in basically in 1 or 2 volleys, or if a torp hits them the right way, bam, bye engine. And really would throw your thrusters off, throw your main acceleration ability off, top speed, all that fun stuff, and really change the Connie's dynamics. Look at the size of those main guns. So, this is, sorry, that's just a side turret. And there's a cargo lift. Basically, this ship is going to need a lot of ammunition to run all these weapon systems. Now, when we talk about the engines on this ship, though, and the Connie I'm using as an example, the Connie had additional armor, health, basically hit points nowadays, because armor's not properly analyzed, but it will be in the future, on those cowlings, so it's much more difficult to try to blindside and sucker punch a Connie. So you can't just hit it with a couple torps and bam, off it goes 2 of its engine cowlings on the one side, and then 50% of its health's gone. You can see a gunner manning this one turret. Most of the turrets are actually inaccessible, even on the Javelin tour. And the reason for that is so the ship can defend itself. And also, how many of these do you really need to see? There's 2, if I'm not mistaken, on the tour. I've seen at least 2, and one has the speech, one does not, where it's the little flavor of having the crew talk to you, and the guys and gals on board that serve the UEE Navy on the UEES Hammerhead are pretty knowledgeable, and they're clearly some of the best of the UEE Navy. And yeah. I think with the NPC cruise coming up soon, it's very exciting stuff. I hinted at this in one of my recent videos that you could see inside here, and you will soon see me attempt to look inside. So if you don't find yourself being this fanatical and going all the way over to a sitting ship and trying to peek inside, and having to flip yourself over just to be able to peek inside, you can enjoy me trying to look inside the hangar of this ship. In general, though, you can expect basically a Vanguard, maybe a Vanguard hoplite, maybe, of that kind of size ship being able to fit inside this cargo area. Sorry, the hangar area. Like right there is where the lifted place can go. The lifted pad is like that right side of the room, and then that is like the command area for the hangar. I do feel that the hangar's a little small for how big the command area is, but it could just be a balancing factor of this ship. They don't want it to be suddenly this supersized ship carrier type thing out of nowhere. So I think they're trying to limit the size of this vessel. So maybe like one Vanguard Hoplite comes to mind, or one of those brand new Legionnaires, could fit in there. And then let's say one MPOV personnel or MPOV cargo to be able to move amongst the fleet, picking up goods and services and medical supplies, whatever you need to move back and forth. Remember, this thing does have its own med base, just like the Idris. And it does have a massive amount of chow hall requirements. I think the crew talk about having 60, 70, 80 personnel or something on board. Now, do remember that the NPC crews will be larger than your crews because they need to be able to sleep, and they're going to be doing 24/7 operations, where your crews will probably not be doing something like that. Your crews will probably be on an adventure for 2 to 3 real world hours, and then you're probably going to want to log off after your play session. At most, maybe a 6 hour period. So it really brings up the question of how many crew is enough crew, and are you willing to have, basically incoming and outgoing org mates that are actual players kind of substitute for the crew there. This is the docking collar you come over on. So I was just kind of screwing around trying to find the gravity of that area. So now let's go inside the ship. Now, I was hoping to do the actual filming of the Javelin tour, in the Javelin, but on Orison, and that ain't gonna happen. But it is incredible to see even what it looks like next to Bajini Point. And for those wondering why I say it that way, it is unfortunate, but that's the breaks, that it seems like that the timers are like an hour long. Servers are not lasting 3, 4, 5 hours, so they have to keep restarting the server here and there during this live server. And if you are the first person here,
celebrations, I'd like to invite you to take a look around and get an up-close look at an active military vessel. Some of the actual crew members have graciously volunteered their time to explain what life is like aboard the ship. I would like to remind you that the entire ship is not available for exploration, so please be respectful of unauthorized areas. Thank you, and enjoy your visit.
So if you're the first person here, it runs extremely smooth. Or if you're one of the first people. But there's one problem. The NPCs are still waking up.
Hello, everyone. My name's Lieutenant Horrigan, and as you can probably tell, this is Warhammer's mess hall. Definitely one of the more popular spaces on the ship. The mess has a fully automated dispensary since we operate on rotating shifts. We have a standard crew complement of 65 to 70, and meals need to be available at all times, so we have a culinary team always on duty, ready to lend support. Famous pilot Harry O'Reilly was once quoted as saying, if you ever want to take the temperature of a ship's crew, spend 20 minutes in their mess. Now this is one of the main social areas of the ships where crew members from different departments can catch up in their own downtime. We also use the mess for social events like birthdays, holidays, and promotions, since it's able to hold so many people. Our skipper, Captain Medcalf, is a big believer in casual gatherings. It's in an effort to entrench camaraderie. So we're in here pretty often. Now, you've probably noticed our games in the corner, so I'll just address the question that everyone asks. Yes, it's pretty competitive. The XO currently has the score to beat. Anyway, I'd like to invite you to have a look around.
XO has the score to beat on what game? I mean, there's 5 or 6 games, even though these don't work yet. Yeah, I guess Herc 2405 is them. Although I think I've seen those same names on the bar and other places with the games. This is letting me know I have an hour and 12 minutes at this location, but the flyby will be in 21 minutes. So I'm going to try to get the flyby as well. I have the 400i already prepped up for that. For those wondering, you can actually just leave a ship in space. Just make sure you close it up so nobody runs off with it. You can absolutely do that, and as long as you don't spawn more than, so you can spawn 2 vehicles, and then when you start spawning the third one, it starts giving you a hard time most of the time. And then if you spawn a fourth, like literally the first one will disappear and be stored away, or just disappear. It is bewildering to me without the NPCs running. I probably should have just ran through here and came back 5 minutes later when all these NPCs wake up.
Hello, welcome to the UEES Warhammer. This Javelin-class destroyer was originally built by Aegis Dynamics and has been in active service since 2832. Launching under the command of Captain Omar Singh, the ship initially served as a combat support vessel in the 2nd Fleet, 6th Battle Group, a posting that put it close to the Vandal front. The Warhammer saw action during the fall of Caliban in 2884, where it protected retreating civilian and naval forces when the system ultimately fell, earning a ribbon for valor in the process. For the next several decades, the Warhammer transitioned between fleets in a variety of support and patrol positions, even participating in the UEE push to reclaim the Nexus system in the 2930s. Most recently, the Warhammer distinguished itself as the primary combat vessel to repel the outlaw group known as Xenothreat from the Stanton system. Since then, the Warhammer has been placed in dry dock for repairs, but is heading back to active service once this year's Invictus festivities are concluded. The room you're currently seated in is the main briefing room for the entire ship. Based around a hollow volume built by Microtech, the crew gathers here to discuss everything from battle strategies to repair schedules. The Marine detail assigned to this ship also uses this room to plan out their boarding actions or outline combat strategies. This room has even acted as a venue for off-duty activities, such as vid screenings or sporting event parties. We hope that you'll take the opportunity to explore the ship and get an up-close look at one of the vanguards of order. On behalf of Captain Metcalf and the rest of the crew, I want to wish you a fantastic Invictus. I hope we see you next year.
That was a good little presentation. The strangest thing about this is that they did mention the Microtech makes these holotables, which you can find at the bottom of the Microtech factory line store in Microtech, inside like their mall, Galleria, whatever you want to call it, towards where like the trade areas are and such. It's dead center, that circular building where you go down the stairwell to get to it. And it's on the bottom floor of it. But one, I don't remember them being this big. I think the biggest one is like for, I guess, an Idris size or something like that. But this is even bigger. Now, on the previews we've seen in the past and vertical slices of Squadron 42, etc., and many other things, it's like the Idris's ready room is like half the size of this. So this half is viewing a vid screen, or hollow table, and then this is added because it's a Javelin. It's doubled the size of it. And they have these comfortable chairs, which are sittable, which is pretty cool. And that's pretty impressive, just even having all these chairs in one place. I know that's weird, but it's nice to see actual usable things being added. But anyway, it is kind of interesting. They mentioned like this room's used for all non-serious activities, such as watching movies and such, and sporting events. So I'm surprised they don't do promotions in here, because they mentioned in the mess hall they like, oh, we use this for promotions too, as long as birthday parties and whatever else. And I'm surprised promotions wouldn't be in such a room. So this is one of the downsides of the Javelin tour, and this is something that happened the year before. This is like content that's been out for a little while. Some doors open, some doors don't. It's that simple. And these guys are supposed to tell you that like you're not supposed to go into these places, but the NPCs have not woken up yet. But yeah, that's honestly what we're dealing with here. Somewhere around here should be, well, not this floor, right? The turrets are on a different floor. You can see this NPC is pretending to be serious. Definitely not going to let me in there. And nope, can't use a collider. The collider's blocking me from using the camera to shove through the wall. Okay. Shame. Would have been nice to see inside an armory. But I mean, for lure's sake, I understand why they wouldn't want you to be able to go in there. It's a shame it's not like a picture. Here's an old picture of the armory. Something. So, oh, they're starting to wake up. So, let's take a look at this. Perspective-wise, you got the blast doors. So these doors are one of the reasons military vessels have a lot more survivability. They have these large doors that protect different parts of the ship. So if, say, a shell hits inside this area and penetrates the wall of this ship, these blast doors help prevent damage occurring to the core of the ship. So basically this area would be ventilated to space. However, because of these blast doors, the area would be limited to this area, obviously this door here, and then I'm guessing the armory would be a blast door, but I'm not certain. So the idea is that these are cored off areas. That's what also these, on each deck you would have a split up area. Now in the core of the ship, there is stairwells that will lead you up and down. They have to have that for practical necessity. Being able to muster their troops back and forth to turrets, being able to get back and forth. But notice that's protected by the blast door, and it's deep into the hull of the ship. Such a large vessel needs things like this to be able to get crew back and forth to the essential areas. And even inside here, you've got blast doors for the other side of the ship. So you could start to see how they build this. In old battleships, they would have technologies like this, where they would basically add these citadel areas, where blast door, and I guarantee if I go down these stairs far enough, I'll find blast doors leading to the sides as well. And that's part of the game, honestly. Can I get a medbay, I wonder? No. So that's honestly where we're at. 12 minutes to the flyby. Okay. Let's see the engineering area if we can. Once again, you can see the double blast door concept protecting different parts of the ship. Yeah, here's the NPCs finally waking up. I wonder if you can talk to them. Nope. Okay. Now, this is an example of, I took my, I guess I took my helmet off too early. There we go. So I'm guessing this is supposed to be lit up. You can see you can't access the airlocks. Can't access the engine rooms that are right above us. We just walked by, but you can go into this turret, I think. Right. In case you didn't know, this is a destroyer class vessel, which means it has a tremendous amount of guns designed to be take down ships smaller than it or the same size as it. It's not really meant to be something that can go toe-to-toe with something larger than it. But it is the smallest of the ships of the line of the fleet. Depending on who you ask, I would argue the Idris is a very capable ship. And especially in a sniper role with that size 10 gun it has on board. But it ain't no Javelin. Javelin sporting its size 12 torpedoes. Javelin having racks and racks and racks of size 7s and size 5s sitting on its side decks to take down smaller ships. And then it has two primary gun platforms, one on the top, one on the bottom, built to handle ships of its same size and kind of really make sure it doesn't get bullied once it runs out of torps or if the torps are being countered.
All right, let's settle down. My name's Lieutenant Commander Alderman. I run the turret complement aboard the Warhammer. That means I'm in charge of coordinating fire between our various gunners during a combat engagement in order to maximize combat effectiveness. But when we aren't in combat, I strive to keep my team sharp by running through engagement drills and simulated encounters. Now, the Javelin comes standard with 15 turrets, 13 of which have embedded operators. There are 6 turrets like the one you see here that run along the side of the ship. each of which is equipped with a pair of size 7 cannons for larger targets and a pair of size 4 Gatlings for smaller targets like fighters and even incoming missiles and torpedoes. We've got 4 more turrets on the bow of the ship, armed with size 7 energy cannons and 3 gunners on the underside with the same. All this firepower is coupled with a heavy payload of ordnance to make the Warhammer a real problem for all sizes of ship, hence why we can be tasked to operate independently on patrols without support from the rest of the battle group. During the Xeno threat incursion, our gunners were responsible for the destruction of over 70 hostile elements and several capital ships, as well as protecting the ship from incoming ordnance. As a special treat, we've safetied this turret so you can get a taste of what it feels like to be a gunner. All the weapons have been deactivated, so don't worry about accidental discharge.
No Jax McCleary situations here.
So be respectful all the same. Thank you, and have a great day.
I would love to hire her as my gun manager for any ship I have. Although I have a theory that I would end up with the down periscope guy where he has the frozen chicken on his shoulder when they're walking the plank on the XL. Take a look at how the smaller turret system that I have above me and then the larger turret that's tasked to it as well are kind of slewing differently. So you have the smaller guns being able to rotate faster to the threat, and then those big old guns taking much longer to get to on location. That's okay though, because once they finally do, you have size 7s that you're manipulating. My goodness, what a ship. I'm going to take this moment just to kind of really soak in what this kind of vessel is. And take a look at those 2 main primary, it's 4 cannon up. And I'm being deliberately vague on that, by the way. The cannon size on those 4 up on top and bottom is a hotly debated topic. At best guess, they may be size 9s or 10s. I'm thinking 9s. But they keep changing the size. So we've seen the Javelin over a few years, and that size guns on the quad mount on the top and the quad mount on bottom change multiple times. One thing is for sure that is fascinating. A lot like the Scorpius, those guns can move. So you can see tracks running behind them, and they're meant to go from front to from where they're sitting to the back of the vessel, which is kind of an interesting concept. Yeah, it's just really interesting. Both guns can go all the way to the end of the ship, to the back of the ship. Pretty cool. Now, you can see that she's talking about the gun complement. One of the guns that I'm manipulating is one of the racks of 3 guns on the side. I wish I could zoom in, but I think in this design, you can see it immediately kicks me that way. And then you can see even more turrets on the spine of the ship on the bottom. There's the side, and then the circles are the two size 12 torpedo launchers on the front. And then even more turrets on the top. I think that those were for balance reasons. Probably, I'm guessing, during testing, people would sit on the top or the bottom of this ship and kind of troll it. If you disable the one big turret on the top, then these side guns can't really get back there. So let's test my theory, by the way. See, that's the beautiful thing of this. See how I can only slew the guns so far? So most of the damage, if you're not talking about the size 12 torps, is broadsiding with this ship. Broadsiding. If you look, though, it can only slew the guns so far, and it only has a downward trajectory arc when it's in the center there. You immediately see the cannon have to go upwards, so I don't smash into the side of the ship. So it's all computerized to handle that, but the point is that it's there. So you can see my gun is the one sticking to the side there, towards the front right when you're looking from our perspective at the moment. But the first gun on the right side to us, left side of the ship, is the one pointed where I'm looking. And the most important thing about this is it is a broadside style weapon system. You can see the primary turrets on the top and the bottom are well suited to broadsiding. However, they are still capable of shooting forward. And they do have that motorized system that can move the turret back and forth. So they have some ability to kind of manipulate their angle and such for that reason. Here comes the Bengal, which I'm totally missing the flyby of. There it is in the distance. Alrighty, let's go on and get. So if we take a look through the sleeping quarters, let's see. This is definitely a do not enter. Notice the color changes too. It's kind of nice that they're starting to do zones. It reminds me a lot of like the movie when they did Ender's Game with all the lines on the ground and stuff and the coloration so you knew which team you were in, which area. Look at the sleeping quarters. It's ridiculous. So the folks who do the preservation for the real world Battleship New Jersey, they said something interesting. They said, we could show you every single bunk room for like 2,000 sailors, but would you really want to? You know, how many bunk rooms do you need to see? Like we're talking about like how actively having them preserved and set up and cleaned constantly so they're suitable for visitors. You know, he said like, you know, we have a couple and if you want to see more, you can go on a tour of that, but understand they're not going to be perfect. And I'm kind of inclined to agree with him. We can see another turret here, interestingly. Let's see if this is any different. I think it's the same. But I have had times in the past where I've been wrong. I would assume that they're going to have multiple turrets available for people to view. This is the back. So from our perspective, let's go around. It would be... Bengal's getting awfully close. That's pretty cool. I'll say pretty cool. That was a pretty rough animation there. I am wearing a helmet. I would recommend wearing a helmet in this environment, mainly due to the fact that you may have pockets of no air. In general, though, you'll be fine if you don't want to. You can just, if you start hearing your character make the noises, you know to leave, you know. You gotta know when to make your exit. So right now I'm on the deck leaving the tour. That's basically it. There's sleeping quarters, there's turrets to jump in, there is the mess hall, there is the hollow viewer room. I've pretty much covered most of it. And that is pretty cool, don't get me wrong. And I made sure I have a helmet on so I can go do this. I'm going to jump on a random pad. And hopefully I'll get a nice good view of the incoming fleet. Although I will admit, even though these elevators are fast, just like the shuttles, it's a long ride back. I think the reason for that is so they can have those NPCs and players packing into the Javelin as it moves around the system. Make more sense, you know, from the server resources side. I will also say, okay, so I have a theory about this. They have to constantly move the Javelin every hour and a half or whatever it is in the fleet, so they don't kill the servers. So I've noticed that the Javelin basically has a new NPC crew, like NPC crew and visitors, kind of load in each time. I think it's a new instance. I think the server literally blips out of existence the Javelin. Once it jumps out and it quantums end quotes to a new location, it takes a couple minutes to come back. I think it's loading in a brand new Javelin. And the idea is very simple. You would load in a new Javelin so you don't have to worry about the server acting up. You don't have to worry about the server because a fresh server handles that Javelin tour much better than a not fresh server. So that's their version of that. Now, as a reminder, you can't buy one of these things, but you can take it with your org. So if you are seriously considering a Bengal, you need to join an org now. Start building those relationships up. And it doesn't take much. Just find a couple folks that are in your same time zone. You'll be amazed how quickly you kind of all get together and have a good time. And that goes for most fleet sales too. Be sure to pick up stuff that's symbiotic and talk to your friends. If one of you already has an expanse that has a refinery, you don't all need one. especially if you don't mine every day. Another guy who's active in that zone, or and another gal that has a hauler, and bam, you've got a fleet. All you need to think about is what can you mine with. Just some thoughts. And in general, ships of this size, I look over there and I see an Idris, I see a Bengal class carrier, which is a massive ship that is going to stay in orb. It's going to stay in service, regardless if people are on board or not. So it's always a target. It's going to need a massive amount of resources to fix these things up. It's going to need NPCs. The UEE Navy is going to know you stole it. You're going to be very upset about that. So you're not going to have this anywhere like Stanton, for example, if you're under control of an org, unless you have a special arrangement with the UEE. Maybe you recover it from a Vandal invasion or something. Who knows? That's not impossible. But it's a lot of things to think about. I gotta tell you, because of the direction I'm heading and because of the blur I'm guessing from me moving and they're moving, those almost look like cardboard cutouts, those other ships. It's kind of crazy looking. It is mind-blowing like how much of a cardboard cutout it is once I zoom in. You can actually see some of the I have high quality textures, but a lot of other things are set to medium, so I'm guessing that is from my fault. I have to be able to record, and I'm trying to keep the audio without getting crunchy. And yes, for those wondering, I will be upgrading my computer at the end of this year, looking hard at all that stuff, but enough real world talk. Let's talk about the Bengal. So the Bengal is massive. It looks small only because I'm so far away from it. I should have just jumped in my 400i. But anyway, that this is the flyby that people keep talking about. It is at Orison. It is at Bajani Point. It is at Everest. And it is at, I think it's Port Olisar, I think. Okay, I have to double check that. But you can see it on the screens all around the system. Exactly where it's going to be, timers leading to it. And it's even on the Javelin tour like you saw. So even on a ship that moves. It tells you exactly when this flyby is going to be. And I gotta tell you, it's nice to see a little escort mission for this wonderful ship. It's pretty cool. Pretty dang cool. And, yeah. I gotta tell you, the Bengal to me, it represents, even it being in-game, even just probably being the external facing of it and some defensive turrets mounted, it represents a lot. But more importantly, I see that Idris, and the Idris M being in-game, actually moving around and being able to defend its Bengal, is actually way more interesting to me. I would say that the Idris series of ships and the Kraken series of ships are probably some of the most anticipated ships in the game. Right behind right in front of the Jav, I would argue. More people have these, plain and simple. And orgs are salivating at the idea of being able to have such a massive ship and be able to do so much with it. And this is all back to server persistence and player persistence, being able to operate large amounts of people off these ships. The devs themselves have said that being able to have beds with locker storage and a lot of those things will mean a lot now that we have localized inventory. And it's true. Being able to field dozens of players out of your org and suddenly now be able to live on the side of a moon. When one of your players spawns in, the Idris spawns in. And you'll be able to suit up and get going with one of the many wheeled vehicles or the 3 fighters on board. I mean, you have a complete living space there. And eventually, when there's outpost, it will still be relevant. It'll still be something that you want to operate out of while you grow your communities on the surfaces of these moons. Now, that's obviously down the line, but it is exciting stuff, and it is obvious why orgs are so excited about having these ships. Even in space, you could see yourself living out of these, especially eventually when we get Pyro, probably in 2023. We have that environment where you can live in a place that no one else can. Plain and simple. If you do not have a vessel like this, there will only be so many people you can live with. The Kraken privateer that has the extra habs comes to mind, and the Idris P, K, and M series. The K just being the package of items. You can just purchase those in game, by the way. You do not need to buy those. Once the Idris is available. I think that's a lot to be said about that. There's a lot going on with these environments. I think that, plain and simple, I am really excited. I'm optimistic, and I think that these type of events kind of reinforce what we're going to see in the future. In the future, there won't be just flybys of these ships, and that is something to celebrate.